Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, powered by FanDuel Sportsbook.
Pitt's entire starting offensive line is back next season. Another Pro Bowl nod for T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward. And what happened with Chase Claypool last week against the Titans? We'll talk about all those things and more on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, powered by FanDuel Sportsbook, here on Pittsburgh CW and also simulcast on 93.7 The Fan. And speaking of 93.7 The Fan, my guest tonight, he is live over in the 93.7 The Fan newsroom, festively dressed as always. Chris Mueller joins me here this evening. Chris, let's start with the Steelers. We heard from Jerry Dulac here just a couple moments ago. He talked about a situation that happened with Chase Claypool last week after everything we saw in Minnesota, after the mea culpa that we saw on his Instagram page. Now we hear about we'll call it a heated discussion, if you will, with him and a coach on the sideline last week. We don't see him for most of the fourth quarter. What's your assessment of what we're hearing here?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that there are maturity issues that the Steelers are worried about. And when I say what I'm about to say here, understand, if you're watching or if you're listening on The Fan, that I'm not calling Jerry out or the other person I'm going to name here, Bob Labriola, out for this. I'm saying that if it's coming from them, it probably is something that the Steelers feel internally. Bob Labriola, you'll remember, Josh, who writes for Steelers.com. So you're writing for the in-house sort of site. You're writing for the site. You're probably not going to write things that are going to make your bosses angry, right? Make Art Rooney angry, etc. He said Chase Claypool had diva tendencies in the offseason. That's the in-house organ writing something like that. Jerry Dulac, very well sourced, very high up in the Steelers organization. He's writing about it. If those two guys, almost above anybody else, are feeling free to write things that do not paint Chase Claypool in a very positive light, I think it's safe to say that the Steelers are trying to exhaust every possible avenue that they can to get through to Chase Claypool. Frankly, I think they need to. I mean, the guy has unbelievable physical gifts that most of us, to say nothing of regular people, like most athletes at his position could only dream of. And he just seems to be completely bereft of maturity. It's especially bad. I don't know about you, Josh. Don't you hear, you read his mea culpa post, you hear him say, I'll be better. And it's like somebody who, when they're in their 20s, says, you know what, I'm going to stop partying 4 nights a week. I'm going to cut it down to 1. I'm going to get my act together. And you see him 2 months later, hey, you want to go out and party tonight, man? This is my 3rd night in a row. Like, they say it. It sounds good. Do they really mean it? I wonder if Chase Claypool really means it.
I'll add something on to that. When you look around the room and can't figure out who that guy is in your group of people, it's probably you. But to your point.
If you meet that guy in the morning, you met that guy. If you meet that guy in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, you're that guy. And I'm using a very specific, I'm substituting that guy for some other words there.
Message received. To your point, it's been a topic of discussion for a while now. I think a lot of people have had things to say about Chase Claypool and his maturity issues. Ryan Clark talked about it at length on his show that he's on in the morning over on ESPN. And I don't think it's that misplaced when you're talking about a team that has to rely on him and those physical gifts that you're talking about to help this team make plays and put them in position to score points, especially an offense that right now is having a really hard time scoring points. And they're going on the road to a hostile environment, like Mike Tomlin likes to call it, one of the more hostile environments in the league, to face an offense that scores a lot of points. And they're going to have to try to go shot for shot with this offense. So if this guy is not on the field, using those talents that you hope he's able to bring to the table to help this team once again score points, because that's their job, it makes that whole task a lot harder, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that it makes it harder because here's this guy that should be a lot better and he's not, and should be more consistent and he's not, and he should be the kind of guy that coaches are drooling over and trying to find ways to get into the game, and it seems like that's actually quite the opposite. Not only that, he was supposed to be somebody, Josh, who did the little things. Remember coming out of Notre Dame? Oh, he loves to block. Oh, he loves to play special teams. You're going to have to try to drag him off the field. He wants to be out there in high-risk situations where he's too valuable physically to put him out there. I don't know. Do you see that guy? I mean, I would love to. I hate this early in a guy's career labeling him immature, labeling him a diva, labeling him a guy that's 4 years and done with the Steelers. But despite his prodigious gifts, all of those things seem true about Chase Claypool.
I label him right now as a guy who's just not meeting expectations. You bring in all the things that were said about him coming out of the draft, and all that stuff is true. And if you can't meet those expectations, how are people supposed to respond to you otherwise? And more importantly, you laid it out already. How is your own organization supposed to respond if you're not responding in kind with what's expected of you? Speaking of people that have things expected of them, let's talk about another story that was reported by ESPN. It appears the University of Oregon is interested in Adrian Clem, the Steelers' offensive line coach. Now, here's what we know about Adrian Clem. Before he joined the Steelers, he had been an offensive line coach in college with 2 different schools, with SMU, also with UCLA. The interesting part is when you see something like that mentioned on social media, I made the interesting decision, if you will, to look at some of the replies. Not all of them seemed like they were begging him to be kept around. Your thoughts on this story, Chris?
I mean, Clem got into some hot water at UCLA, and I know was the subject of a lawsuit there that I believe Jim Mora Jr. was also named in. I remember kind of squawking about that over the summer to anybody who would listen, and it didn't seem like it registered here. Maybe that went away. I saw a lot of the same replies you did, I'm sure, Joss. Hey, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. See you later. Addition by subtraction. He was in over his head this year from the start. They didn't give him much to work with. He's not Mike Munchak. He's not Bill Callahan. He's not Dante Scarnecchia. He's not one of those all-time line coaches. He's in his first year as an offensive line coach, the main guy in the NFL. Good riddance, man. If this ends up being true, go to Oregon. Have fun with it. Apparently, he's a great recruiter who would be coveted for that skill because he's not a coordinator where you need those guys really working on the team every week. So if that's why they're attracted to him as a candidate, go for it. And the Steelers can't block him. You know what the other thing is, Josh? I'll get my digs in here. Phil Knight is Nike's biggest is Oregon's biggest benefactor. You want to bet that position, if they really want him, pays more money than it does here? That's embarrassing that we're even saying that, but we know, because the Steelers don't seem to refute this. I've heard it said many times by many different people. I've said it. It seems like they have the lowest budget for assistant coaches in the league. Until I hear somebody definitively refute that, which, again, I haven't, I'm going to assume and proceed that is the case. So maybe Adrian Clem's getting a raise. Fail upward, baby. It's the American way.
Wouldn't be the first time we've heard it in the coaching ranks in football. That's all I'll say about that. 412-575-2600. That is the number on the Borders and Borders hotline. Also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. We got to take a break. We'll take phone calls and tweets, and we got our tweet of the night when we come back. Stick around.